Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Royal Rumble post show. It's John Pollock and Wai Ting. Lots to get into from tonight's show from the Alamo Dome, and we will be getting to you as well for patrons that are out there. You will have the ability to call in afterwards. But overall, Wai, your impressions of this year's Royal Rumble?
The show overall, I thought was certainly a mixed bag. You know, we're strictly talking about the centerpieces of these sort of shows, and that's the Rumble matches. I think they got to their destinations perfectly fine. You know, for both matches, I think they were highlighted by whether it was the final two or the final three, whenever that took place. And I think coming out of those matches, the results are great. But the body of both of the matches, in particular with the women, I think you could certainly be critical of. And then the body of the show, I think you could certainly be very critical of in between, as we will get to. But when we talk about the finishes of those Rumbles, I left very satisfied. And when we talk about the end of this show, I could not imagine a more satisfactory ending to that particular match. And at least, you know, this major crossroads, end of a big chapter of the Sami Zayn, Roman Reigns, Kevin Owens story.
The angle was phenomenal. The angle was, I think, among the best you have seen in WWE
in history.
It's up there. It was a tremendous angle, and coming out of it, like, you look at where this gets you to WrestleMania as well, because what you did tonight to me was among the biggest angles in company history, just in terms of effectiveness and the satisfaction of seeing how much of buildup had been behind this and the reaction to that chair shot. And then everything, the visual at the end, all of it was done so tremendously well. You have Jey Uso, that really the Jey Uso element is a 2.5-year story itself, going back to 2020, right at the beginning of this whole tribal chief character as well. And just how that gets you to Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes is another question, because after this, it's to me, like, that is the only thing people want to see coming out of this. Not to say that Cody was negative on this show. I think that was executed very well. It's just that angle is going to dominate everything to me coming out of this show for people.
Absolutely. When you come out of the show and you ask me who the number one babyface in the WWE is, there's zero question in my mind. It's Sami Zayn. A lot can happen between now and then. Obviously, we got Montreal coming up with the Elimination Chamber, so you pivot the story far enough to get Sami Zayn, maybe to get some sort of climax of his story then, and then somehow pave the way for Roman Reigns after that with Cody. It's very possible. I have complete trust, after seeing this angle tonight. I have complete trust in the people, in the brains that are, behind this particular angle. So let's see how they get there.
Well, let's get into it, because it's a lengthy show as we are coming at you here after midnight, a near 4.5-hour show from the Alamo Dome. The pre-show was only noteworthy for the fact that they did do a Bloodline segment in the locker room with all the members there, and it's Roman Reigns reacting to SmackDown and how he gave an order and Zayn could not follow it by showing up on SmackDown. Why do I need to treat you like a child? And it's Jey that steps in and takes the blame. It was his call, explaining that Solo had the match. We were kicked out of the building by Adam Pearce, and you were off doing the Tonight Show. I had to call the audible, and Sami was there for the family. And with that, Roman just changes the topic to tonight and says, let's just worry about tonight. And he wants the Usos to stay in the back, and Zayn will be with him all night, and says the formidable words, tonight is Sami's night. And this segment, I mean, it made it pretty clear, and especially knowing that the Men's Rumble was going to kick off the show, that this is the departure of Sami Zayn's Royal Rumble participation. Like, I don't think anyone was expecting him in the Rumble, nor was there chance of Sami or anything like that. The fact that the title match was closing, I think everyone realized that this was the explanation of Sami Zayn will not be in the Rumble, nor were any of the Bloodline members.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, this could have been really, the thing that they did to throw it off. I mean, I also do think there's something to what Sami Zayn was suggesting, and that maybe this is a very different era of a WWE audience that, might not be as likely to revolt and turn on a show. Certainly tonight, you got zero indication that they were expecting Sami.
Yeah. There was also a segment with Greg Miller, the host of This Is Awesome, who took a pie in the face from JBL. So if you tuned in for the pre-show, you were more than rewarded.
And wasn't there like some comedian at the end?
Gabriel Iglesias was there. I didn't catch it. I'm sure he had a great time at the Rumble. The Rumble opens up with a video voiced by Hardy, who would have quite the presence on tonight's show. I knew what I was saying 3.5 hours into this show. I could really go for a concert right now. That's what I needed.
I did not expect the concert to come. I don't know if they announced it or that just.
Oh, they announced it. They announced it way back when they did the angle with Solo Sikoa that he would perform at the Rumble. So they did advertise this.
I guess I had forgotten all about it, and we kind of talk about 9:30 on a Wednesday being a tough spot for any match to take place on a Dynamite. Certainly anything at the 10 o'clock hour on Raw is a tough spot. I can't imagine a worse spot to throw in a musical performance than 11:30 p.m.
I can't imagine a worse musical performance to fit in at any point of this show. I thought it was pretty dreadful, but we'll get there later in the show. They announced that attendance of 51,338. We will see what the actual number was. WrestleTix earlier today had it at 44,417. So I'm sure that they, by the time the show began, I'm sure they were closing in. I don't know if they quite hit 50 or not, but we'll see. It was a very, very strong audience. It sounded like a great crowd at various points, and the gate was through the roof for this company. So this was a giant event for the company. This could end up being their most watched pay-per-view ever, just based on the amount of homes Peacock is in. Like, this might beat last year's Mania, which was in around 13 million homes. They're up to 20 now with Peacock. So like you could certainly come out on Monday with one of their lines, like the most watched WWE pay-per-view of all time, and maybe very accurate.
Is that purely just based on the possibility of 20 million people having access to it? Do we actually have real numbers about how many people chose to tune in on Peacock?
They get those numbers. We do not. They just say, year over year, there were 30% more that watched than this year. They just give those percentages out. But I take those as, true figures, that they are the most watched when they state them. And they should be when you're on a platform like this. Like, you compare this to the pay-per-view era, it's night and day in terms of the reach that you have. And it's not just, accessibility. I feel also there's a big buzz in the product, and this is a very popular show. There was a lot of things going for this as well, but the distribution of Peacock also helps. So our first surprise of the night, it is Pat McAfee, who is back. He comes out. If Michael Cole did not know Pat McAfee was coming out, he did a wonderful job of conveying how shocked he was that Pat was out here and had no idea this guy was going to be joining him. I can't imagine that to be true, but my God, did he sell me on the fact that this guy just seemed like completely stunned. He was like, I just talked to you this morning. Our producer's telling us you're sitting in for the show. And we got Pat McAfee, Michael Cole, and Corey Graves all night long. And Pat McAfee, boy, this is a guy that has such a charm and energy about him that can certainly skate by the fact that this dude didn't watch any wrestling the last 4 months. That would be my strong assumption.
Would you say so?
Yes.
I didn't notice any, honestly, too much that was off, about his commentary.
Dude, he didn't know Alexa Bliss's character is now she's now crazy, I understand. And
Right,
dude, there were a lot of, he gets by on the fact that he knows the.
To be fair, I watch this show every single week and I take notes, and I'll still ask that question from time to time about Alexa.
Well,
is Lacey Evans a heel, or she's a baby face now?
Well, maybe it's best you don't tune in. And kicking things off, the Men's Royal Rumble. What did you think about the Men's Rumble kicking off the show?
Not much, perfectly fine. Part of me obviously wondered if it was maybe their way of maybe distancing the Sami Zayn aspect of it all with this.
There was nothing else that could have closed the show than what they did.
Absolutely, yeah. Part of me wonders if it's like somewhat political since like the women started last year. I don't know, but
well, they also
I
want
thought
to
it
do
was
the
fine.
story with Rhea going in hurt as well to the women's Rumble, so
Sure.
there was that factor as well. I don't think it really mattered the placement of all of this, but this was a match that started with Gunther and Sheamus on Sheamus's 45th birthday, and for his birthday, he ended up having to put in a lot of ring time, but not as much as Gunther, who we can talk about now. I mean, Gunther goes right until the end and sets the, I guess, the non-Saudi Arabia Royal Rumble record of longest in the Rumble.
I believe the wording now is the longest record in a traditional Royal Rumble match.
So when they say most eliminations in a Rumble, Braun Strowman is still credited for what he did in Saudi Arabia. How is that one worded?
Well,
it's like we acknowledge Saudi Arabia when it's convenient, and we distance ourselves from it when it's a guy that is no longer on our roster. So you have to do the math. But yeah, other than Daniel Bryan in Saudi Arabia, Gunther now has the record for the longest lasting member in a Royal Rumble. And we talked on Friday about Gunther and getting like the big sort of monster spot. They gave him the Iron Man spot, and I thought this guy gained a ton out of this Rumble. Like, you can see how high they have him positioned, because he was I think his stock was greatly increased from this Rumble handling.
Oh, he was one of the biggest, projects, I would say, of this entire Rumble. As far as breakout, I don't know if there is somebody who benefited from this more than him. He would have fit with maybe the monster role with most eliminations, but like tonight they didn't even seem to make that big of a deal out of most eliminations. So I'm kind of curious about like who had that stat, but it almost like it wasn't featured, so it almost didn't matter. It's actually far more impressive in a legitimate real world way to see a guy perform for 60 plus minutes, and thankfully like they have a guy who's not only big but has the cardio to be able to pull that off, like in a Gunther.
The Miz was in third and ended up being the first elimination several minutes in. Kofi Kingston was fourth, noting it's his 15th Rumble that he comes in. And poor Kofi. I mean, last year he had the near elimination streak end where it unfortunately luck was not on his side. And then this year, I guess they were trying for something and the chair did not cooperate. So
I'm guessing this is maybe the new streak, John, of him failing every single attempt at one of these Royal Rumble spots.
This was rough. And he was like, do I keep my foot above here? And it was like, we didn't even get any finality to this. It was just Kofi was gone and we just didn't reference him anymore. Like, this was his elimination.
You can't save this. Like,
it was
so for people, I don't know if some of you might be listening to this and you haven't watched. The spot was Kofi was on the apron. Gunther was supposed to, shove him off the apron. And Woods, who was already eliminated on the outside, rolled up a chair, one of those sort of like office chairs.
To catch him.
Kofi was supposed to land on the office chair, and they just crumbled. I mean,
the legs like came out from underneath, and he just spilled on the floor like you're seeing here. So it was.
You can't trust these wheeled office chairs. They're awfully hard to do spots in. But yeah, this is another unfortunate embarrassment for Kofi Kingston.
Johnny Gargano is fifth, coming back from his shoulder injury that he's been out since December 30th with. Dude, this remix of Rebel Heart is awful. It's terrible.
Now,
if Hardy was singing it, that's the only thing that can make this thing worse. There was no reaction to this guy coming out because of this song. That I don't know if many people have heard it yet, because he's only used it a handful of times.
It's almost to the point where like you're better off just choosing a completely new song than to try to replicate, the one that people have already gotten so used to. Now, would you have felt this way if you didn't know the original?
I do know the original. It's not a good song to begin with. It's
well, you didn't even like the original one?
No, I should say like if I was just listening to this remixed Rebel Heart song on its own, I didn't have the precedent.
It's just sung differently.
I don't like it. It's slow. Yeah. It's so much slower, and it's just it's the first one was so upbeat and energy filled, and this one is the opposite of it. It's just a bad song.
Yeah.
Xavier Woods is in sixth, and then so they're just kind of loading up the ring. The New Day teamed up here, and then they did a standoff, and we thought Kofi and Woods would go at it, and they did what Michael Cole described as a wheelbarrow butt slapper together.
I wouldn't know how else you would describe what they did. Yeah.
Karrion Kross is out 7th. And then Chad Gable follows him, and then Drew McIntyre is out. And Pat McAfee is asking, what are Drew and Sheamus's name? What do they call themselves? And Corey Graves says, it's no longer for public consumption. There's copyrights involved, as he was not going to call them the Banger Bros. And then Drew Claymore's Karrion Kross out. So Karrion Kross is in this thing for under 5 minutes. A very underwhelming 24 hours for Karrion Kross. I don't know about this guy.
Yeah. No interaction with Rey Mysterio. Obviously, lost to Rey on SmackDown, and it doesn't seem. Well, we'll see.
No one interacted with Rey that we're aware of.
No.
Gunther.
Well, Dominic. That was the insinuation.
That was with the mask. Santos Escobar is out 10th. Now, the best part about Drew coming out 9th and Santos Escobar 10th is that during the pre-show, they're drawing their numbers, and we just have to look at their facial reactions. Yeah. So Drew gets his thing, and he's like, oh, damn. And he walks off, and then Santos Escobar gets his, and he's like, I've won the lottery. It's like these two men and how they interpreted their numbers differently. They were one apart. One was like, 10 is like 20 away from the end. And Drew, it's like, oh, Christ, 9. This was just awesome.
Those poor guys. They really should tell them what number they actually are going in before filming those.
Graves says he hopes that Escobar did not learn Royal Rumble rules from Mil Moscris. For that reference in depth, check out the Royal Rumble 97 watch-along, available postwrestlingcafe.com. Angelo Dawkins is out 11th in his Spurs colors. And then Gunther sends Kingston off the apron, and this is where he crashes. And back-to-back rough years for Kofi Kingston. Number 12 is Brock Lesnar, who is out to a big reaction. Drew and Sheamus go after him, and he's delivering Germans. The audience is all amped here as Lesnar eliminates Escobar with a fallaway slam, clotheslines Dawkins out, dumps Gable, and then he lifts Sheamus for this belly-to-belly and nearly killed poor Sheamus on his birthday. Yeah. Man, I was like holding my breath. And this dude, like, we saw the thing with Big E last year, and it was like, man, I've got that stuck in my head. And this was pretty scary to watch. And then Brock has a big face-off with Gunther. So that leads to Bobby Lashley coming out.
And a big reaction from the audience.
Yep, the audience liked this. And Gunther, you have to imagine he's positioned for something big. Not saying it's going to be Brock, but you figure Gunther is going to have something really sizable at Mania based on his handling in all of this. And Lesnar, if that ends up being a direction, like, people would buy into it. It's a fresh opponent, and I think people would not have any apprehension about this idea.
Not at all. It's a very attractive match.
So Lashley comes out right after Brock. Amazing luck of the draw here. And he spears Lesnar and then delivers ones to Drew and Sheamus and Gunther. But an F5 gets stopped by Lashley, and then he clotheslines Lesnar out. So Lashley eliminates Lesnar, and Lesnar is pissed. He tosses a piece of desk into the ring of the desk and then drives the steps into the desk and just goes insane. He attacks Baron Corbin, who's the next entrant, and F5s him on the floor. And that's it for Brock Lesnar. He was in this thing for about 3 minutes, but we are obviously going with him and Bobby Lashley at one of these upcoming shows, whether it be in 3 weeks or Mania. And they did tease the Gunther stuff. So you certainly had a lot of angles shot in this match for a lot of the key guys that you can see some directions coming out of this Rumble. It wasn't as though you're just, man, I don't know where these people are going to land. There were several key directions. 15th is Seth Rollins, who continues to attack Corbin on the floor, then rolls him in and clotheslines Corbin out. So what is the ruling on how long a guy is in the Rumble for? Does Corbin's time start when he enters the ring, or when he gets ringside? Like, how would a Chris Engler figure this one out?
I would say when you enter the ring.
Okay, so then he was probably even shorter than Elias. Elias was like 30 seconds or so. Corbin was in and out in 5 seconds or so.
Mm-hmm. Well, what is about somebody who didn't enter at all, like a Rey Mysterio? Technically, he's still
Cody
active.
should have to beat Ray.
That's it. Yeah.
The Maven rule.
Sure.
He never got eliminated one year. Yeah. Oh, perfect. Otis is in 16th, and then followed by Rey Mysterio's music. And Rey never comes out. These announcers. Well, Rey is he's never always on time. He must be, maybe he didn't hear his music. What could have happened to Rey? He's just running late. And then 18th is Dominic Mysterio, and Dom comes out wearing his father's mask, and Michael Cole calls him a piece of shit, and the announcers were supposed to cut him off, but he got enough of it out there that he just full out called this dude a piece of shit. And
he was trying to tear this mask and had a hell of a time.
Well, he had a tougher time with this mask than he probably did his dad backstage. This mask was a durable mask, only the best for Ray on pay-per-view night. So I took this to be mask match, like mask versus hair or mask, something involving Ray's mask should be the match at WrestleMania.
I mean, but they screw with Ray's mask all the time, you know? Like, it's a big stipulation. I would say that, like, it would be wonderful, yes. I would say the program is probably hard enough that you don't even have to go there. But, you know, yeah, it would if they, you know, because I don't think Ray's losing his mask. So if Dom is willing to shave his head bald, then you could add that stipulation.
If you're going to lose your mask to someone, would you not want it to be your son?
I guess I just never really want him to lose his mask. Cause
number one, Kevin Nash. Number two, your son.
Yeah, it would be Kevin Nash first, yeah.
So I thought Dominic was great in this.
Awesome.
Like, the total coward, and he just like slithers his way to stay in the match. What happened to Madcap Moss? Go back to the graphic there. What happened to Madcap?
Well,
I guess there were had to make some room for some people. Oh, maybe maybe Edge ran into him in the back, or Booker.
Yeah, could be.
So, I thought Dominic was really great. Just his entrance here, even struggling with the mask. I mean, it kind of fits this guy.
He's
just this dork. Anyway, Conan getting a shout out too from Corey Graves. That even Conan's afraid of ex-con Dom.
He got that from his brother, Corey.
Elias was 19th, and he comes in, he breaks a guitar over Gunther's back, and Gunther's back is all sliced up. This poor dude had to go another half hour after this guitar shot, and his back just looked like hell from this guitar shot. It's a Claymore Brogue combo, which I like the double team maneuver, and really you position Drew and Sheamus as sort of like your modern day Undertaker Kane combo, and they just, they got a lot out of it, like the ass kicking tag team that didn't win the match, but certainly got a lot out of it.
Yeah, I'd love for them to have, you know, interesting tag team move names that I'm sure the internet will have plenty of fun with.
The Plague.
Not that, more fun than that.
Okay. Finn Balor was 20th, and he knocks Gargano out. Gargano lasted over 30 minutes, but I can't say anything memorable involving Johnny Gargano. He was sort of
the music was maybe the reaction to the music.
Bravo. He did wonderful. 21 was Booker T, 57-year-old Booker T. So he comes out, hell of a reaction for the Spinneroonie, and then Gunther tosses him out, and Pat calls Gunther a hole of an ass for doing that.
Yeah. You know, obviously, a big Texas welcome for Booker T. I think the dude looks incredible, at least in terms of his, you know, physical shape at 57. Got in there and got all the spots done, went over the top rope well, you know, did the Spinneroonie. It's about as much as you can ask for somebody at 57.
Yeah, they really did not. This was as much of a, in terms of the nostalgia surprises. You know, it was Booker T and Michelle McCool are pretty much the names from the past. Everyone else, it was current stuff.
And I'm not too upset
it was
by
fine.
it. You know, like they have such a big roster right now. I'd rather they focus on like good storytelling. You definitely want your, you know, occasional surprises, and maybe they considered, you know, guys that you haven't seen in a long time to be surprised. Like
you had a lot of names like that have been either out of action or were pending debuts that you had enough that were surprises that didn't have to be going back to 20 years. So I was totally fine with this. Damian Priest, Montez Ford, and then 24th is Edge, who comes out, spears Priest and Balor, and then Dom tries to hit him with a 619. He gets speared, and then Edge eliminates Priest, eliminates Balor, and then faces off with Seth Rollins, reigniting that feud. But then Dominic jumps him, and the Judgment Day return, sending him over the top, and Edge was in this thing for 2 minutes? But you set up a lot here with the Judgment Day direction and obviously building to some major culmination of that feud, and they continue to fight all the way up to the ramp or the entranceway as Dominic remains in the match. And as Austin Theory comes out, he just lets Edge, Balor, and Priest fight when Ripley nails Edge from behind, and that prompts Beth Phoenix to come out, stare down Ripley, and Beth Phoenix spears Ripley, who would have to go into her match later on injured.
Again, with Edge, I don't think anybody is looking for him to, last long in the Rumble. Like there's no value in keeping him to final two. Like his purpose is to get out here and for the first time in many months, get revenge on the Judgment Day. They had a very intense brawl, so intense that Finn Balor tripped on his way towards the end of the ramp. But the Beth Phoenix return I thought was very well done, and I thought overall they did a great job with the Judgment Day, and did a great job with this Edge program with Beth Phoenix coming out of this.
Yeah. Are you seeing like mixed tag or?
I think you could do both. Maybe. I mean, we forget. They're having a pay-per-view in Montreal, and Edge, of course, is not from a hometown not that far away from Montreal. We're practically neighbors. In every major city here in Canada. So maybe the mixed tag in Montreal, and then WrestleMania might be where your singles is, or vice versa.
You could also do like Edge, Beth, and Ray against Balor, Priest, and Rhea, and don't get Dominic involved with Ray in the match, but then that is your spinoff for Mania. You could do Ray and Dominic, and then Edge, whatever his program is for Mania, if you squeeze out one more big thing with Balor, or Edge is off to something else for WrestleMania. Omos was 26th, and he's coming in, and man, this guy was just talking up a storm to everybody. He's delivering choke slams, setting up stuff with Gunther. Then Braun Strowman comes off, and him and Omos have a face-off. As Pat notes, not a lot of flippy-flopping going on, and Braun eliminates Omos with a clothesline, yelling, "Get your big ass out of here." And he did. Omos was gone. Ricochet is 28th. Then 29 is the returning Logan Paul, who suddenly woke up one day and realized, you know what? I'm a great heel. I should go with this. And this crowd hated him, and he just soaked in these boos. And finally, it feels like the world is in sync with Logan Paul's character, and everyone is on the same page.
Really glad they came to their senses, I wasn't even exactly sure, but I mean, from the moment he came out here, this crowd was booing him. I don't even think he was really prompting it too much. It's just the world's reaction to the Paul brothers. They played it up very well, I would say appropriately here.
They were ganging up on Logan Paul. The crowd cheered this. He hit his buckshot lariat onto Ricochet. And then Cody Rhodes is number 30. And giant pop for Cody. He comes in and he goes after Theory. He throws out his weight belt, and we see the Three Amigos by Dominic onto Cody, and then he counters on the last one into the crossroads, eliminating Dominic. From there, Logan and Ricochet go onto opposite sides of the ring, and they're like mouthing towards each other. Do you want to do this? And they go for simultaneous springboard clotheslines, and this was totally insane. Mm-hmm. Crowd went it's nuts for this.
Yeah.
Look at this shot.
Thank you to the person in the crowd for taking this.
This is a crowd shot? Wow.
It looks like it. Yeah.
Great photo.
Beautiful photo, yeah. I mean,
Was this Michelle McCool?
I don't know. She would have had a very busy night if so. But this was such an incredibly simple spot. Like, it's almost archaic. We're going to both bounce off of these ropes and run into each other as hard and as fast as possible, but boy did it provide such a spectacular visual, taking advantage of both men's incredible vertical leaps. The spot of the match, I would say.
From just like a pure athletic standpoint, this was like your standout visual. Like, look at that shot. It's incredible. Cody and Ricochet work together to send Braun out. Then Theory clotheslines Ricochet out, and they're stomping on Theory. Cody clotheslines Theory out, and Cody and Rollins work together to eliminate Theory. So the final four are Cody, Rollins, Gunther, and hiding is Logan Paul. You assume it's just three, but Logan Paul is there. They love doing that one. So Rollins says Cody won't steal his spotlight again, and then they each take turns pedigreeing Gunther for points with Uncle Paul.
Well, to carry their sort of like month-long story of both of them vying for Triple H's throne.
Logan Paul, not Levesque, returns and throws Rollins out. And that seemed to be our hint towards Logan Paul and Seth Rollins, which will be a phenomenal match between those two.
Yeah. I mean, we know Logan Paul has asked for John Cena. There are probably a lot of issues with that, just mainly perhaps on Cena's schedule and his end. But I
And
think
they're
the
clearly teasing already the Theory stuff. Like if Cena's
Yeah.
coming back, it looks like he's locked up with Theory, whether that's a tag, whether that's a singles. That like they're already putting those hints out.
The Rollins match was one that I wasn't necessarily considering, and I actually like it a whole lot. We see in Logan Paul somebody who provides a lot of raw talent for this thing and a lot of raw athleticism for this sport. And Seth Rollins is somebody who seemingly has been able to have incredible matches with everybody. So on a big stage with enough time with Logan Paul, I mean they can do really well.
So Logan is just healing it up, and then he's hit with a crossroads, and Cody eliminates Logan Paul, bringing it down to Cody and the number one entrant, Gunther. Number 1 versus number 30. And they had an outstanding like usually the final two, it's pretty quick, and you've got a fever pitch from the crowd. But they worked like a mini match here, and I thought it was really, really intense between the two. Yeah. We saw a Cody cutter hit. Gunther ends up taking a dragon screw through the rope, and then Cody sets him up in the corner and hits Shattered Dreams full on with the gold dust mannerisms. And
does that say anything to you?
In terms of what?
Well, I mean, I guess that there's discussion of Dustin Rhodes' contract possibly being due soon. Not that this would signify anything, but he chose a very specific spot for a very specific, heavily watched moment in this particular match to tease.
I'm sure it might get that discussion out there of like Dustin Rhodes being hired as like a coach or a producer. I really don't see him coming in. Like I think his performing days are winding down.
But the occasional performance role like he's got in AEW perhaps. But yeah, like this might just kind of jumpstart that discussion a little bit more.
So they're battling by the apron, and then the last Symphony attempt is countered into a crossroads, and Cody clotheslines him out 71 minutes and 41 seconds, and he points to the sign, and Michael Cole says, from dashing to Stardust to the main event of WrestleMania, the trinity of the Cody Rhodes story, those three, that's the straight line.
Yeah, I guess
Dashing,
so.
Stardust, Mania headliner.
Right,
big gap between Stardust and Mania headliner.
Well, I will say, like he is kind of still playing the AEW character. Like it's the same guy. So like Cole's verbiage was more so referencing gimmick changes. I felt, but what did you want him to say, John? The guy who headlined put together All In. What else?
Yeah, just if you're going to include Dashing and Stardust. But this was a great ending to the Rumble. I thought overall I don't think that this was top tier of Royal Rumbles, but I thought like there was like solid maybe like upper third. Like I thought this was an entertaining match overall. You had a lot of different angles throughout the match, which I always like the fact that you come out of this with several different directions, whether it be, Brock with Lashley that we already knew, Rollins and Logan Paul. You had, Gunther, we don't really have who he's paired with, but a lot of options. And I think his stock comes out so great as a result of this. I thought Dominic was handled really well. So there was a lot here, and you had a winner that this audience embraced and took as a big deal.
Yeah. The biggest risk I felt was, whether or not people would have gravitated towards Cody Rhodes as that big favorite by the end, because there are distractions out there in a Sami Zayn, because Cody Rhodes has been away from TV for so long, and this showed me that those concerns we shouldn't have really had those concerns, because I thought they achieved everything they wanted to with Cody Rhodes here. As far as the Rumble match goes, I thought the first third was pretty forgettable overall. The second third I thought was really highlighted by the really unpredictable energy of a Brock Lesnar run-in, even though he only lasted like 2 minutes. I mean, him getting pissed off because he only lasted 2 minutes was the show. Him freaking out and just like throwing shit around that only Brock Lesnar could throw around. I thought it was tremendously entertaining. And then you did great work with Judgment Day versus Edge and Beth Phoenix. Dominic, I thought, especially had, a wonderfully charismatic performance. And I did not think I would be saying that for a long time. Logan Paul, I thought, had a pretty good showing. Spot of the night goes to him and Ricochet. And, you set up pretty big match, I would say, with Seth Rollins. But, the talk coming out of this will be remembered for two people, and that's Cody Rhodes and Gunther. I thought the final stretch was fantastic, and the aspect I love the most is that it made Gunther look incredible, even in losing, by the sheer fact that he lasted, from, what is it, number one. Number one. Yeah. Number one to 29th, Great performance by him, great final stretch here, and sets up a lot in motion for WrestleMania and beyond.
Yeah, and a lot of times with the Rumble, it's going to be that final 5 minutes that people are going to put the most stock into. And I think both matches greatly benefited from like strong finishes to the matches. So following the men's Royal Rumble, it's 9:30 at this point. I was like, wow, we're going late tonight. So now it is time for the Mountain Dew Pitch Black match.
Yep.
Were you excited?
I was curious to see what it would look like. I don't know if you call that excitement. Do you get excited about, I don't know, like seeing the weather report and knowing that like 10 feet of snow is coming down, and I don't know.
I tell you what would not be exciting if I was LA Knight, if I had like opened up the demon that is Bray Wyatt's mind, and the man, hey man, we're gonna settle this with some laser tag
or cosmic bowling,
dude. So this match, we've got the giant Mountain Dew logo in the center of the ring. The lights
and that's pretty different, we've always known Vince was adamantly against selling canvas space.
This was always, he had his limits. And let me preface by saying, like, I think this is a match that people are largely going to pan. Maybe some won't. Financially, I'm sure this was an exceptionally lucrative match for WWE, much like that zombie lumberjack match was, much like I'm sure Zelina Vega being sponsored by Street Fighter was. And I think we're always going to continue to see more of these types of integrations in the programming where it makes sense. But I am sure Mountain Dew paid a gigantic amount for this kind of commercial, which is all I can call it, like a commercial, is what it essentially was. Mm-hmm. So Knight's tights and such glow in the dark here. We've got like fluorescent tights, and then Bray Wyatt had like this glow in the dark paint that Jeff Hardy kind of popularized 2 decades ago.
Sure, yeah. I think we got to focus on this aspect a bit more because let's think about it from their perspective. Okay, you have Bray Wyatt and you have LA Knight, and all of a sudden corporate comes in and says, "Guys, we got to sell something for Mountain Dew."
and you're the match we've chosen.
And yeah, you're the creative mind. Come up with.
Sorry, we thought your name was LA Lights, and we.
Oh, very nice. But like given those sort of like circumstances, I think the presentation deserves to be to me praised, because I thought it was incredibly cool to see Bray Wyatt coming out looking like he normally does, and then the lights turn, the black lights turn on, and all of a sudden you created like a real life transformation from one thing to another with the flick of a switch. Like all the paint showed up only when the lights came on, and I thought this transformation, at least this aspect of the match, came out across really well.
Well, then the laser tag began, and what I was like, the audience was like, I'm not going to say they were like not into this. I didn't think they were all that hot for it. It was
I questioned how much they could actually see.
I did too. I didn't know how much like they could even see. And when Bray Wyatt took that Mick Foley Irish whip knees first into the steps, I was like, dude, this is not the match to be just destroying your knees over. Like, this is the one where you can just get away with the least amount of damage possible.
It's his first match back though in such a long time. He's been back.
No one's remembering the match portion here. They're remembering the stunt at the end and stuff glowing in the dark. Like, this is hardly a match to me.
Well, I will certainly say, yeah, like the black light, unfortunately, even to me watching on camera, I think made it hard to really focus on the spots themselves. And I can only imagine if you're sitting in the top, deck of that stadium, how much of the actual physical action you were able to see.
How did LA Knight's character know to wear glow-in-the-dark tights?
I don't know.
He was asking what this match was last night. How did he know?
Well, he just wears like neon green tights. That just might be one of these colors. He just lucked out.
These are his normal tights? They always glow in the dark?
Well, it's not glow in the dark. It's a black light, John. You've been to the dance cave. you know how this works. Like if you certain
My
colors,
clothes never looked like this.
then you must not have that.
Why
much
didn't Bray?
neon green?
Why didn't Bray get the wardrobe tip? Not his thing.
He doesn't look that great in neon green, I'm assuming. But like black lights like illuminate certain colors, and I mean.
So let me ask you: when they destroyed the desk and Knight puts him through, was that the Mountain Dew drink that was going all over?
No.
Or was that just, what was it?
So people who saw the match knows that like when Bray was setting up the table spot from the announce desk, he was clearing
I thought it was a chemical spill.
He was clearing the table as he usually does, and then all of a sudden like these little cups of like neon green confetti start like flying elsewhere. And I'm trying to study this, seeing how these little pallets are dropping.
I thought it was the drink.
I'm wondering if they're drinks too, and I'm like, what is cold drinking?
I was like, I would never drink this stuff in my life.
Yeah, what are he and Graves drinking plutonium or something? Like, so it turns out that this was supposed to be, little pallets of neon plastic confetti that were supposed to explode upon impact from the table spot. But somebody screwed up and placed a couple of cups there. It just kind of ruined the spot a little bit. I mean, it looked visually impressive, but kind of ruined the immersion, I suppose, a little too soon.
So Knight misses with a kendo stick, and he's pinned after Sister Abigail in 5:05. Bray has a new mask on, and Knight tries to fight him off with a kendo stick, and Bray just stalks him. The kendo stick shots have no effect. He applies the mandible claw by this riser that they go near the entrance when Uncle Howdy appears, or as Pat identified, what is that? And Uncle Howdy proceeds to jump off of this balcony, and fire went off. So Uncle Howdy's dead. We'll never see him again.
I don't know if he's dead. He might already be dead, John. So this might have been just a lateral move for Uncle Howdy. I don't think he sacrificed himself this way.
I'm not too bent out of shape. This was 5 minutes, and I think everyone had a bit of an idea going into this. Wasn't my thing, but not enough of the show that it was a major detriment to me either.
I feel like your enjoyment of this is going to largely depend on how receptive you are to this Bray Wyatt character and all this kind of spooky stuff. And I'm somebody who, in the past has had a very high limit for my embracing of it. And I think even I have high limits because
I just didn't think the concept was all that cool. Like the glow in the dark stuff, I don't know. That to me it did not blow me away. And that was sort of what this is going to be judged on more than a wrestling match. And it was, I don't know. To me, it wasn't interesting.
In the grand scope of Bray Wyatt experimental matches, I would say this fared better than the House of Horrors match. And somewhere maybe underneath. What's your favorite experimental Bray Wyatt match? Do you have one, John?
What was the one they tried after the Broken Hardy, the final deletion? They tried one with the New Day on the Wyatt campsite. That was pretty awful. Okay. I don't have one. Right. I don't think I've enjoyed any.
This was far from the worst, in my opinion. I thought it had some impressive visuals. I thought it did a good job again creating that live action transformation for this character.
Did you want a Mountain Dew pitch black after this match? That's the question.
God, no.
That's literally the question that Mountain Dew would be asking.
I wanted the neon green plutonium that Michael Cole was drinking there.
I would never try this stuff. Never.
Yeah. Ultimately, you judge a match's success by the crowd response, by the internet response. I haven't really been online too much, but at least listening to it, it was kind of quiet, in arena. And I think much of it due to the lack of visibility, maybe people asking, what is going on? What exactly is this? You can certainly play with a lot of effects in doing these sort of matches, but I think we should have learned from the feed matches, from the Sin Cara matches, you should not fuck around with people's ability to see. And that, to me, at least, might have been the biggest hindrance. I mean, among other things. So,
well, during the concert, I was wishing they would screw around with my ability to hear.
That should have been a pitch black performance. Yeah.
Bianca Belair against Alexa Bliss for the Raw Women's title. This is when Pat is informed that Alexa is now a psychopath. So Bliss had the heat, and then Belair ends up in a bow and arrow where Alexa's pulling on the braid, and then rotates Bliss off of her back into a vertical suplex, goes for the handspring moonsault, lands on the knees, then stops a tilt-a-whirl, hits the handspring moonsault, and then Bliss avoids a KOD, hits a DDT for her one near fall, and then Bliss puts out her hand like she's going to deliver a claw. Belair stops it, as does, she blocks a Sister Abigail attempt to hit the KOD and wins clean in 7:33. A game Alexa Bliss, as Michael Cole puts it. This match did not need to be on this show.
Well, you have no other women's match, John. You
have a Royal Rumble.
Other than the Rumble. And I think you needed it for that reason, because I think you would have had plenty of people complain. In terms of story, this was absolutely a skippable match, We got no real form of resolution whatsoever. It's just kind of another tease of like, has Alexa been embraced by Uncle Howdy? Same sort of like thing we've learned for previous weeks on Raw. I thought the match itself was a good standard wrestling match, but you had no reaction because you built this match with people expecting the Uncle Howdy spooky stuff coming off of it, and that never happened.
This was just a normal Raw match, and not an especially great one either.
It made the match unfortunately feel insignificant, and I thought these two worked hard, but it was always going to be secondary to the story, and they didn't deliver much story.
And then we get this playground scene appearing, and shots of Alexa when she was under the spell of Bray, and Uncle Howdy asking if she feels in charge. So maybe this is maybe the meta interpretation of this angle is Alexa Bliss is playing Paul Levesque and constantly being asked, do you feel in charge of this company?
Interesting. So Uncle Howdy is Vince?
Yes.
That would be quite the reveal.
We had an Applebee's commercial with Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch. And then,
it's pretty bad. Like
what? You don't have this kind of dialogue with your wife when you go out for dinner?
It's the type of commercial that where like you can clearly tell Becky Lynch wanted nothing to do with it. Like,
and Seth was all in. He loved it.
I mean, as the character, it just kind of he can get by, but like, man, like this this was bad.
What I loved was the Elimination Chamber ad where the theme is like it's taking place in the Arctic because we're going to Canada in the winter. It's just ice and frozen lettering. It's
February in Montreal. It
is pretty damn
off.
cold. It is. It is pretty cold. No one volunteers to go to Montreal at this time of the year, but a lot are. Then it is the Women's Royal Rumble, and Rhea Ripley is out first, and she's holding her ribs after the spear, and Liv Morgan is number 2, as they explain she wanted to be number 1, so she got number 2.
Well, I mean, still luck of the draw, of course, and close enough.
What did you think about mirroring the Men's Rumble as well, with the with Gunther kind of going right to the end, and then doing it here as well?
I didn't mind it, I think you want people talking about certain people coming out of these Rumbles, and Rhea didn't need the spot. You can argue Gunther, if you're going to pick one, Gunther needed it more. Rhea didn't necessarily need it, but it certainly didn't hurt. And I don't think it takes away from either, the fact that both of them did it.
No, it was just interesting as well, because to me, it did somewhat subdue like the angle with Beth, that she goes in compromised and then she does this incredible feat going from number 1 to win the entire thing.
A little. I mean, she was still annoyed, she's still like out there hurting, so
okay, well,
she could still get revenge for it that way.
She held up for over an hour.
I guess where was Beth, at the end of all this? Like, did she just decide to leave? She got her spot.
She should have bought a ticket. She could have got into the Rumble.
Yeah.
Dana Brooke is 3rd. She has apparently been in every one of these women's Royal Rumbles and is never going to win one. Emma was 4th. They said this is a big deal because she was released just weeks before the last Rumble, or the first women's Rumble. So now she's in one. Shayna Baszler is in 5th. Somewhere in here, Ripley got a bloody nose. And then Graves rants about people stopping others from eliminating people. Why would you do that? Which is a great point. 6th was Bayley, followed by B-Fab. And then our first surprise was Roxanne Perez, your NXT Women's Champion, who comes in and they plug
Texan.
Vengeance Day. And from Texas as well. Dakota Kai was 9th, and then 10th was Io Sky. And this led to Damage Control ganging up and making a bunch of eliminations together, including Emma, and then using this battering ram to eliminate Roxanne Perez. But they went out of their way to put Roxanne Perez over for the time that she was in there.
She looked great, I thought.
And she got a good reaction, too.
Yeah. And I do wonder how like it sounded like the stadium crowd responded well to her, and at least a good chunk of the people recognized that she was a home state person. And she came in and looked really impressive. Very cool, good looking head scissors. I would have said like the first 10 even like entrants didn't really make that big of an impression on me, but she did. So I would say this was a pretty successful debut for her.
Oh, I'd say like the first portion of this was very subdued, and Roxanne Perez, she got a good reaction. She looked good, and I don't think she'll be long for NXT. I think like she could make that transition quicker than most.
Yep.
Natalya made her return 11th, coming out with the old Jim Neidhart style hat as well.
And Brett glasses.
And Brett glasses as well.
Tribute to both of them.
This is her return, and going after Shayna immediately. Candice LeRae was 12th, and this saw Shayna stop Natalya and apply a Kirifuda clutch on the edge, and Damage Control eliminate both Natalya and Shayna Baszler. Zoe Stark was in 13th from NXT, and they were like, Corey, tell us about Zoe Stark. She is second to none. She is a tough customer from NXT. And you've got Cole, who it was like broken telephone throughout the NXT portion where, didn't she win a battle royal on NXT a while ago? I believe so. It's just like, there would be even more when Indy Hartwell came in. That was my favorite. Xia Li was in 14th. The referee stopped her from bringing her staff into the ring that she was just going to, like the stick, not like staph infection. And Damage Control eliminates Candice. 15th is Becky Lynch, which it was like this audience was like, okay, beyond Rhea, finally we have someone that we can buy winning this. I don't think even Bayley people believed was a contender here. And that is what I thought this women's battle royal did suffer from, was just such a lack of believable winners to this. And Becky, I think you sensed that when she was eliminated. Like, she was the only alternate people saw beyond Ripley.
Yeah, I would say so, pretty much. They did get into like the end, but I don't think anybody realistically bought any of the other people. Maybe
they tried to build
Asuka.
up Raquel a bit.
Yeah, maybe Asuka, but yeah, no. This entire 30-woman Rumble was to me a real sign of just the lack of depth in the divisions.
16th was Tegan Nox, which led to Corey Graves asking, what does it mean to have the shiniest wizard? And they're like, well, she's got the best shining wizard. Well, I think Mr. Muto would disagree with that.
Yeah. Would he?
Probably. Yeah, I think so. Then number 17, it's Asuka. And dude, she came out, first of all, like she came out to different music, and the place went insane. Yeah. They were so loud when she came out, and she's got this mask over top, and then she takes it off, revealing the shorter hair, and pretty much like a throwback to the Kana version of Asuka. And
the murder clown, sort of a Great Muta style gimmick that she had.
And this was, I thought she was one of the best parts of this Rumble. She got a tremendous reaction. She was great in the ring. She got in, she just starts unloading on Bayley and ends up going right till the end. She was part of the final 3, but I thought this, and she's been off for quite a while, so this was also the return pop.
She, is one of a handful of people that I think people can recognize as a top tier person. I mean, I thought she was a late entrant and somebody that you could maybe justifiably buy of actually having a chance of winning this thing. And her coming out with this throwback look that is new to a WWE audience. Everybody immediately gravitated towards it. It helped that you had the active wrestlers in the ring completely sell for it. Like
they all were in fear and really put over like this is a different character. I thought this was a great transformation of Asuka.
It looked really cool, and we could see it.
You can sell masks of this as well for people. Like there's a lot that you can do with this character. It just feels like a refresh for Asuka.
Yes.
Number 18, speaking of refresh, it's the return of Piper Niven. Dewdrop is gone.
No, it's her debut, John.
Right.
No mention of Dewdrop whatsoever.
No, other than Pat saying, I do drop them all over the ring.
Huh.
19 is Tamina, who is she is back, and her and Niven had a face-off. Becky returns to fight Damage Control after being dropped on the desk. 20th is the returning Chelsea Green. And Fightful had reported that an idea that's been thrown around is her doing this Karen character. And just based on her mannerisms coming to the ring, that certainly seems to be the direction she is going.
Yeah, and also, of course, her quick elimination, which will give her something to complain about.
Exactly. She was in and out in seconds, so she had the tantrum, and now she has something to scream and complain about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
did someone in the company just realize what a Karen is after the promo a few weeks ago with Bayley and Becky, and they're up to like, I don't know, 2016 social stereotypes?
It could be, maybe it's making a comeback. I don't know, but it's a very mid-card sort of comedy character. But we'll see how well it does.
Becky then eliminates Kai and Sky, but Bayley dumps out Becky, and this crowd was so sad to see Becky go. And then Liv eliminates Bayley, so a bunch of eliminations in succession. 21 is Jewelry from Street Fighter 6 was our entrant. That's who Zelina Vega was playing, as she will be the guest commentator on the game.
Like a game competition or some sort of festival.
Know.
I don't think she's actually in the game, at least.
You know who also knew nothing about this game was Michael Cole, Corey Graves, and Pat McAfee, who at least Corey Graves mentioned why can't we get a Blanca character that electrocutes everyone? Dude, Michael Cole, he blanked on Blanca. He didn't know what are you talking about? What's Blanca?
Might have been a bit before his time. Maybe Donkey Kong might have been a closer reference. Zelina and Xia Li had a fight on the apron, and I'm assuming this was intentional. It almost
where she flew. She gave Xia Li the ability to have wings and fly to her demise on the floor.
I mean, it looked like they were trying to replicate a 2D side scroller, which is what Street Fighter is, and I thought it was kind of clever. I mean, in execution, I don't know.
It was fine.
Yeah.
Raquel Rodriguez is out 22nd in her Eddie Guerrero-inspired gear. Michin is 23rd. Lacey Evans, and then 25, Michelle McCool, who had been showing in the crowd earlier with her kids, just casually gets up from her seat, and she takes part in the match in her Uggs and her pants full of crosses.
Yeah, like track pants,
Yeah, just everyday casual pants expressing your love for Christ.
I could buy her wearing this. What's
I'm not saying not. It was quite the
this
combo.
Felt like
here.
a very deliberate, normal, everyday thing somebody would wear.
Well, she hit a faith breaker to Zelina Vega and then eliminates Tamina. 26 is Indy Hartwell. So Cole asks, wasn't she an NXT tag champion? Corey, I believe so. Cole says, we need to get Booker out here to explain who these NXT stars are. And then he thinks for a minute. Do you think Booker T knows who Indy Hartwell is? Of course, Booker, who calls NXT every week. Then Corey Graves tries to explain who the Way was and just ends it with, it was really weird. And then he's just so lost. He goes to call Raquel Gonzalez and then catches himself that she's now Rodriguez. Not a whole lot of broadcasters keeping up with NXT, and WWE was my takeaway.
It's a lot of hours for people to keep up with, and
Pat was trying to keep up with Raw and SmackDown. He wasn't even getting involved in these NXT discussions.
Oh yeah. I mean, if it's some people need Tuesdays off. I don't really blame them.
It's a lot. 27th is Sonya Deville, who they note already has a title match on Friday, but this will be she can double up on title matches. Shotzi comes back 28. She has the tank, and Cole criticizes her not riding the tank all the way to the ring. She blew her energy getting out of the tank.
It's a pretty slow tank.
This was a long ramp as well.
Very long ramp.
That's half the reason this show was so long, was these entrances.
Maybe, yes.
Like they had to do this big run, and then you had to turn into another big one. Like there was a big turn in the middle. Nikki Cross is 29th, and then number 30, Nia Jax.
Did we miss Lacey? Oh wait, you already called Lacey?
I didn't have much to add about Lacey. She was in.
Nia Jax, that's right, making her return here.
She yells, "I'm back, bitch." And they all ganged up on her. Dude, Jax and Ripley tried to slam Jax and could not. Then like the weakest Riptide onto Nia Jax, and then everyone ganged up and eliminated Nia. Who's back, it seems.
I mean, somebody like her, I don't necessarily see her as like a Michelle McCool one night only thing. I mean, I get the sense this is more of a, return full on. So, not exactly looking forward to like, seeing her come back in a permanent role with those matches. But I think for a Rumble slot, it got a good reaction.
You know what? I bet when that WES booking fell apart last summer, she got the itch to come back.
She's not going to go out like that. Yeah.
Let's just go through the ending here. Raquel and Asuka, at one point, they were just on totally different pages for a Tahana bomb. There were a few like miscommunications in this throughout. The ring was just filling up with people, so we had to start eliminating some people. Asuka eliminated DeVille. Ripley sent out McCool. Niven eliminated Michin and Shotzi. I know Wai was pulling for Michin. That was your dark horse pick to win the whole thing?
Oh,
Michin and Dana Brooke.
Runner. Yeah.
Rodriguez then boots out Niven, and then Raquel goes for a Tahana bomb on Ripley. They land on the apron. Ripley eliminates Rodriguez, so it is down to Ripley, Liv, Asuka, and Nikki Cross. Liv sends out Nikki Cross, and then we get the final three. And I thought this was the best of the whole match, was these three at the end. They're all fighting on the edge. Asuka sprays the blue mist. Ripley ducks, and it hits Liv in the face, and it allows Ripley to nail Asuka, eliminating her. And then Liv tries to send Ripley out, who is holding on to the top rope. Her legs are dangling, and then she pulls herself up and head scissors Liv, who took a hell of a bump to the floor for an awesome ending elimination. And Ripley runs the table 61 minutes and 8 seconds, and then started off a brand new trend. She waved at the WrestleMania sign.
Oh, you waved. Okay.
She waved.
Well, yeah, I'm sure the sign
Looky here, Tomohiro Ishii biting the rope.
Yes, that's right, yeah. I mean, it's rude to point, so I'm sure the sign appreciates a nice wave once in a while. Really good final three. To me, the rest of the Rumble was largely formulaic and pretty forgettable.
I thought it was a pretty underwhelming Rumble until the end. It was just names showing up. Yeah. It was not a whole lot of interesting stories going on or interactions. It was to me like a lot of women that they have signed but have not done a whole lot with, and this kind of match exposes that. And it was when Roxanne Perez is one of your big standouts. It's like that. It was like a Tegan Knox has been on the roster for months, and not to just pick on Tegan, there were plenty of them that are just not regularly featured, and then you see them in this, and like really, you had maybe 3 to 4 people at best that you could have any believability, and that's probably high.
I think it points to maybe, one of the bigger disappointments of the Paul Levesque era, something that I would have really expected to change just given his track record in NXT. And that's the lack of, real development of the women's division. One after another, you have these names come in and none of them feel special. Look at a Michin, Mia Yim. Coming here. Look at a Shotzi. Look at a Xia Li. There's so many women on these rosters that will make.
And there's only more. Like now you've got Chelsea Green, you've got Nia Jax, like you're gonna have
Nikki
call-ups.
Cross. Like they kind of jumpstart little bits of intrigue with them on these programs, and then they're completely dropped whatsoever. Even Liv Morgan, they've been teasing. The only story going into this Women's Rumble has been Liv Morgan teasing that she wants to be number 1, and we haven't seen her in 3 weeks. Continue that story. So by the time you finally got to the match, it's one after another of completely uninteresting and competitors that you just can't buy winning. The person who's developed the most, under Levesque and the women's division has been Rhea Ripley, and she's stayed completely out of the women's division. So what does that tell you? I think it's a real, wake-up call. It should be, for just how little they put into the women's division as of late.
So after that, we had a Netflix ad for the Lucha series that is streaming, and then we see the ropes coming down, and we forgot about this. Hardy performs Sold Out, which I just saw this thing completely panned by everyone. It was number 1 late in the show, number 2 an awful song, number 3 a pretty terrible performance, and I just don't think anyone was tuning in for this. But they had a contractual agreement, so we had Hardy play his song about being a redneck that drinks beer and shoots animals and all that stuff.
I think music performances at wrestling shows are going to be polarizing no matter what, because we're all united by our love of professional wrestling and not music. I have different tastes in music from you, John, and we have different tastes in music certainly from pretty much every single person. I mean, if it was Aqua playing on this, then
I wouldn't. I don't really need these like anyone.
They
honestly.
put a stop to the action. And especially this late into the show, we're talking 11:30 p.m., 3.5 hours into this show, they decide to give this to us. Now, I was not that upset, John, because this gave me an excuse to heat up my dinner, pick up the laundry from the dryer, eat my dinner, clean my plate. So I got a whole lot done that I won't have to do a little bit later on after we're done here. So, but it was not worth sitting down for my entertainment, at least.
Wow, this gave me 10 minutes to contemplate having to wake up in about 5 hours from now. Roman Reigns and Kevin Owens for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. It is promoted as the final chapter and Zayn's final test. So, man, from the end of that Women's Rumble to the start of this match, I think that we could have had, I don't know, I probably could have come over to your house, Way.
Yeah.
We had it was a long gap here. So Reigns comes out to his entrance. The match begins, and immediately we're getting chants of Sami Uso. And early on, Reigns does a Uranagi that Cole calls a rock bottom, you could say. And Cole is bringing up the look on Sami Zayn's face whenever Owens kicks out. And the others are like, you're just into conspiracy theories. You're just reading into things. But everyone's like paying attention to Sami Zayn at this point. The two, they were having a very nice match here, but it was pretty much just back and forth at the beginning. And the audience was kind of subdued because I think they all knew this is going long and this is all about Sami Zayn. So the beginning part, it did start off to me a little like muted. But from there, they built up and got towards some of the big near falls, and the audience just grew and grew in terms of their reception to this. At one point, Reigns misses a spear running into the post into the corner, and Owens hits a swanton, and then he goes to the top, and he goes for his twisting moonsault that he's done so many times, and he loses his footing on the top rope and just crashes, and thankfully was okay. This was like a rough fall, and just got up and then did a moonsault off the second turnbuckle as it was going to set up a spear for a 2 count by Reigns. But they keep going. The stunner gets blocked, and Owens is run into the referee, but then hits the pop-up powerbomb, and he's got the visual, but no referee to count 3. So Reigns is able to hit a low blow, and dude, Sami Zayn is just awesome here. You're just watching all of his facial reactions and what it means and what he is thinking, and is he backing Reigns? Is he secretly hoping for Owens to pull this out? Like, Sami was just tremendous here. And Reigns calls for a chair, and Sami says, "I was told to do nothing," and he demands the chair. So Zayn hesitates and then finally slides it to Roman Reigns. And Owens is able to get up, hit a stunner, and it's a big near fall. And dude, this crowd was at a point where they believe maybe Owens can win this match, which is mission accomplished.
Because the Sami interaction had already taken place.
Yeah. And when Reigns kicks out of this, dude, Zayn is almost hyperventilating as he's like composing himself, and Heyman is shooting him this look. And from there, there's a pop-up by Owens, and Reigns hits him with a Superman punch in midair, hits the spear, another kick out, and Zayn is telling Owens, just stay down. And with that, Reigns runs at them. Zayn is out of the way, and Reigns spears Owens through the barricade and does that spot that we saw on Raw a number of months ago where he drills Owens back onto the stairs, and he does this twice. And I have to imagine that time we both were just grotesque at this spot on Raw. And I have to imagine someone said, dude, if you're going to do that, save that spot for something way more important than a throwaway match on Raw. So he takes the back spot onto the stairs, and he's put into the ring, and Owens is trying to fight back, and one final spear keeps him down in 19 minutes and 14 seconds, with Zayn looking conflicted on the floor. I thought this turned into a really entertaining match based off of the near falls that you really got this crowd to a fever pitch. I think they've had better matches together, but this was still very dramatic in the end, that you got people to that final, I would say, 5 to 10 minutes.
I thought it was like, a match that certainly fit maybe the... It was a bit faster, I would say, than maybe like the Roman Reigns main event that we've seen. And it was entertaining, but I think we were all distracted by the angle that was to come. Ultimately, the match,
The match is going to be forgotten. The angle will be what is remembered after this.
Yeah, so it was satisfying, and I think certainly helped...
It was a very good match.
Set the scene for the end, but I would say it was not the story of this segment.
No, I think everyone was looking at Sami Zayn and what was to come, and they were going to deliver. So the Bloodline all come out, they're in the ring, and Jay goes to put a lay onto Sami Zayn when Reigns stops him. And the Usos then continue to stomp on Owens, and they barely get this guy all the way up for a 1D, and they put the chair around his neck. And Cole brings up how Riddle has been out for months since this, as Solo hits the hip attack into the chair around Owens' neck. Then they get handcuffs, and they handcuff Owens up against the top rope, and they just super kick him over and over and over again as Sami is watching his best friend just get destroyed in front of him. There's more chance of Sami, and Reigns has the chair, and he's going to end it all when Sami stands in front of Owens, and everyone cheers on Sami that he's finally standing up for Kevin Owens, and Sami's trying to talk Reigns out of it, stating, "He's done. You're beneath this." So Reigns thinks about it, and then he hands the weapon to Sami Zayn. He's going to carry out the hit. You are going to do it. And Zayn is so conflicted. He doesn't know what to do. In the back, you've got Heyman yelling, "Shmooly, this is your moment." And Reigns pleads to him, "Owens doesn't care about you. He's an anchor." And that Reigns loves Sami. "You were doing jackass shit before me." And then says, "Pull the trigger." And then he sees weakness. He goes to Paul. He's crying. And he starts pie-facing Sami. He screams in his face. And then he turns around, and Sami Zayn winds up, and he nails Roman in the back. Dude, this place explodes. It was the most feel-good pop that it was like all this work, and they got this giant reaction for what it was all built towards. It was tremendous.
It was a tremendous release. Absolutely.
And from there, Jimmy just looks at Jay and says, "Is this your brother?" "No, I'm your brother." And super kicks Sami, and Jimmy and Solo end up beating the hell out of Sami Zayn. The Samoan spike is hit, but we see Jay, who is just standing there, and he is not taking part in this beatdown of Sami Zayn. And Jay finally makes a move, and he leaves the ring. He is in tears as Roman is just stunned at this, and he attacks Sami with the chair, yelling that "you broke my family," and just hits him with shot after shot. He's nailing him with punches, and he rips off the honorary Uso shirt, and the whole place is chanting, "Fuck you, Roman." Tons of heat for this angle, and the visual at the end, he's just pulling out from the lay, and we've got like these rose petals over top of them as Owens is handcuffed to the rope. Sami is dead in the middle, and this is the image to end the show with. This was beautiful. It was a phenomenal angle. It got everything you could have wanted out of this, and like it felt like, wow, we're cruising for like the biggest WrestleMania of like homegrown talent of regular roster members possible with this incredible angle. But you've also got to get to Roman and Cody in this whole thing as well. So how they navigate all this will be interesting. But from a just physical standpoint, Like Kevin Owens wrestling in 3 weeks on this pay-per-view seems kind of like he almost shouldn't be on this pay-per-view in Montreal, given the beatdown that this was.
Perhaps, but he can go into the match injured.
Well, he'll definitely have to do that. But I thought this was one of the great angles in WWE history. I just thought everyone nailed it. And this is what this show is going to be remembered for. And I think what most will grade this show based upon is this angle.
I watch a lot of wrestling, John, and I have seen a lot of wrestling. I am 38 years old. I'm now a father. I don't really cry for anything these days, especially professional wrestling that is scripted and not based in, a real life tragedy, for instance. I fucking cried after this angle, during this angle, especially it wasn't so much the moment when Sami Zayn turned on Roman Reigns. That was great, but it was the camera cutting back to the Usos' reaction, and the reaction of both Usos was not immediately anger like you would normally see, whenever one of these swerves happen. It was heartbreak. They were both crying. They were both disappointed. They believed in this guy. They put their backs out.
It was 6 months ago. Jay wanted this. Jay wanted this guy destroyed and away as far as possible, and here Sami won him over.
They fully embraced this guy, and they loved him as a brother. And this was akin to your brother turning on your family and choosing somebody else but your family. It was so emotionally gripping. I knew I loved this angle. I knew I loved the storyline. I didn't know that they could take me, this jaded professional wrestling podcaster, to this level of emotion that I don't know if I even really felt as a child. It was scripted perfectly. It was built perfectly. I mean, we've seen, Paul Heyman design many handcuffed crucifix type of angle. And, I wasn't there for a lot of the ECW ones, but I have to imagine this was among maybe the most successful, if he did indeed have a hand in it, which I'm assuming he and, plenty of other people who have been leading the way with this entire angle have brilliantly
I would
done.
imagine Paul leaning on the religious backdrop. The visual of Owens was probably a touch in there to think about.
But it's Roman's look of disappointment and sadness, and the incredible performance Roman Reigns gave in just continuing to heat Sami Zayn up before you finally wanted to see this guy pull it off. And I mean, they had me going. I didn't know if he was going to turn, tonight. They could have delayed this for another month or so and whatever. But Sami Zayn did it tonight, and the results were unforgettable. This was truly masterful professional wrestling storytelling. The likes of which I haven't seen in a very, very long time. I can't say enough great things about this.
Yeah, it was riveting, and it really does bring up the question of where you go, because the next show is in Montreal's in 3 weeks, and I don't think you can get to and I don't think people were necessarily expecting the Usos match there. But also the question of what you do here. Do you do Roman and Sami in Montreal?
I don't know, man. I don't know. Part of me feels I would almost be disappointed, because where do you go after that? There has to be an ultimate destination here.
I feel that ultimately it is, you could have, it's like Roman and Sami in
Montreal. Look at this image. Look at this still image.
It was tremendous.
This is out of a comic book. And professional wrestlers who are not trained actors were able to pull this off to create this beautiful image. It's a comic book splash page. Look at this. Anyway,
I would go Roman and Sami in Montreal, and that's where Jay, he has to make his allegiance known. Which it's almost like this. He is now in the Sami Zayn role, and if it's with Roman, it's the beatdown at the end, and that's Kevin Owens' return at the end. Montreal gets Owens showing up at the end to save Sami, and the final scene at Elimination Chamber is Sami and Owens hugging in the middle, and they are going for the Usos tag titles because they tried to destroy us, and now we are closer than ever.
That would be a lovely way to close off that particular show. I mean, right now the possibilities I think are an embarrassment of riches, and that includes attaching Cody. I mean, I feel Cody can make his way into the storyline in an organic fashion.
Like Roman keeps the title from Zayn with like whether it's Jay's help, but the big feel-good moment is Owens and Zayn reunited at the end of Elimination Chamber. Reigns goes off with Cody, and then Owens and Zayn are with the Usos for WrestleMania. And I think that is the best way to go with this. And I think Reigns and Zayn is the direction that should be the direction for Montreal.
Sure. I just, you see a result like this, and I think they have a lot more mileage than just WrestleMania. In this Bloodline versus Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens story. I think they can go to SummerSlam, possibly even beyond, if they play their cards right. Like, I know Sami Zayn has said what he said about, like getting a token title win, perhaps, but not being the face of a company. But even for that token title win, if that's his ceiling, they could build that up to be huge later on. So I wouldn't extinguish this, in the next 2 months. I think there's way more life left in it beyond that.
Overall, your rating of the show, where did you go on this show?
Well, to deduce it down to a number out of 10, like I think the endings of the Rumble matches came across very well. They set all the pieces in place for Mania really well. The end of the Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens Roman Reigns match was among the best endings I've ever seen, to close a pay-per-view. So all that considered, I'm going to give the show like an 8 out of 10 because the heights took it that high. But that's really just for the heights. The rest of it was just kind of there, especially a lot of the matches in the middle.
Yeah, in a perfect world, this whole show could have been the 2 Rumbles and the title match. Like those 3 matches, I would have been so satisfied with just that. I'll go 7 out of 10. But a very incredible angle at the end, and I do feel the Rumble matches, the way they ended, left people on a high note as well. So if you are one of our patrons, you are able to call in. You have the information to join the StreamYard room, and we'll be taking your calls and feedback from the thread before we sign off tonight.
Yeah.
And we can hear your thoughts.
Let's go first of all to some of our super chats here from the people watching us live at youtube.com/postwrestling. And if you wanted to get any of your thoughts in, or if you just want to support the show, consider sending us a super chat if you're enjoying these reviews. We're live after every Raw, after every single Dynamite. And if you choose to become a member of postwrestlingcafe.com or video.postwrestling.com, we are live after every edition of SmackDown and Rampage every single Friday. So let's first go here to a super chat from Cows Crazy, who sends $5. Thank you for the support, Cows Crazy. He says, Mania of Night 1, Cody versus Roman for the Raw title. Night 2, Sami versus Roman for the SmackDown title. Jay helps to make the story go full circle. What do you think of that suggestion, John?
I don't like the 2 title defenses. I think it waters down the first one. I think it makes Cody feel as though it's almost a layup that Roman is going to take on Sami, because I don't think people are clamoring for Cody and Sami on night 2. And I just like one big, what is the WrestleMania main event? What is the big title match? And you promote that strong instead of splintering the title matches.
Yeah, ultimately.
And honestly, Sami and Roman, to me, is a hell of a lot bigger in Montreal than even Mania.
Yeah. They could do it. I would just maybe worry that, like, can you still go further beyond that? Or do you save the first real Roman Reigns versus Sami Zayn match for some time after that? I don't know. They have a lot.
I think after the angle, you've got to strike now. Like, what can you imagine Sami doing? Like, he's in an Elimination Chamber match in Montreal instead?
Not necessarily. Could be something else. He could be in an Elimination Chamber because he wants to get his hands on Roman, so he's going to try to get... But, like, what is I guess the Elimination Chamber would probably be for Roman's title, right?
There shouldn't be an Elimination Chamber for the men's if, like, Cody is going for this undisputed title. I mean, there shouldn't be a men's... should be a women's chamber match.
Well, I mean, unless Roman is an active participant with the title.
Roman defending, which... Yeah.
I don't hate that if you want Roman and Sami Zayn to have that interaction without actually promoting a Roman versus Sami match. The idea is that Sami has to last long enough through the chamber to get to Roman for the end, perhaps. That's one way of building it. But, I mean, we got to take the focus off of Sami and Roman and put it on Cody at some point.
Well, that's it. I would just do one-on-one in Montreal. That would be my choice.
Let's go up next to Muggin, who says, who sends $2. Thank you for the support, Muggin. He says Zelina's doing guest commentary for Street Fighter 6. What does that mean? I mean, it's a video game, so like, what's she doing commentary for? I'm assuming a tournament online or something.
We said she's doing guest commentary. That's what they said on commentary, and yes, I don't know.
Yeah, okay. Well, let us know, Muggin. Lionheart sends $2 to say, after Mania, Jay and Jimmy gets singles runs. Maybe opens up a lot of possibility for them too. Jay Uso really, like, if there's a best supporting actor nomination for wrestling, I mean, he'd be the one. Like, he has been so damn good throughout this entire storyline. Fans would really get behind him if they decided to go, on a singles rep with him at this point. So we'll see. Thank you for all you guys for your super chats, and we'll go right now to some of our phone calls here from our active patrons at postwrestlingcafe.com. Let's first go here to Chris from Baltimore. Welcome to the show.
Hey guys, one thing about the men's rumble and then Bray Wyatt. The men's rumble, I don't know if it was like I like the in-ring, but the lead up to Cody, them telegraphing that he was in it, and then throughout the match, like people I was watching with, we thought maybe Sami, definitely probably Cody, but the outside shot of The Rock or Austin, and then the longer the match went, the more it broke down to this is definitely Cody. And like at the end of it, it kind of just killed the ending for me, where you see him in the ring with Gunther, and Gunther's great, but I know that Gunther's not headlining in WrestleMania, at least right now. And then on to Bray Wyatt, like,
it's always going to be the case. Sorry, to cut you off, just to comment on that. It's always going to be the case when there's somebody like, if it's not The Rock, like, was there somebody? Sorry, who was the other person that you would have actually bought?
Like, if Sami appeared in the Rumble, that would have raised some intrigue. Mm-hmm. But also, like, the amount of talk that, like, a lot of people had beforehand of maybe The Rock shows up or maybe Austin, but
that ruined it for you.
Like, even like if Cody came out before 30, that might have raised more questions. But like once you got to the end and like Logan Paul comes out at 29, Cody's number 30.
Sure.
And it just kind of like everything that happened in ring was great, mm-hmm. and it set up a lot. But like, me personally, I like at the end where like you have maybe at least one other person where you're like, maybe this could happen.
But unfortunately, in this instance, who could that have been? Sami Zayn already had a role that was not at all conducive to putting the focus on Cody Rhodes. The project of this Rumble was Gunther and getting Gunther that spotlight. So coming out of it, you're thinking of Gunther. And I totally would be in agreement, sometimes for wrestling fans that go online and look at the odds and really logically think about where this story could go. But I also think there's something to be said about just booking the show for people who aren't thinking that way. People who are strictly just watching the show as if it's like a real life story without knowledge of sort of the behind the scenes and the rumor mills and whatnot. Ultimately, coming out of it, who can you tell the bigger story with? And that's putting Gunther in this final two.
Yeah. But my other thing about Bray Wyatt is that like more and more, like no matter what character he plays and how much happens before the match, like he could be, Bray Wyatt or Uncle Howdy or the Firefly Funhouse. It's like the bell rings and he just like moveset wise, like it's all the same. Like he just that's Mike Rotunda's son. He's not doing a lot. The matches the match itself doesn't do anything, and you just have to keep building and building and building on like the smoke and mirrors before the match to try and carry the match itself. So it just seems like to become a letdown, like especially in the crowd, because I don't know how that visually was for the crowd. Like it didn't sound like it was doing a lot for them. Mm-hmm. So at the end, I just kind of feel let down by it.
Very fair points. Thank you so much, Chris. Yeah. John, would you say like your expectations have changed at all about future Bray Wyatt matches coming off of this compared to maybe his prior runs?
No, they've been. I questioned like how you successfully navigate this character from the get-go, and I think that there was a lot of expectation of the return of the character, and that was done as effectively as you're going to get. But we always knew this was going to be a difficult process, and it's proven to be. And you're either a fan of this character or you're not. And I think it's always been very difficult to figure this in. Like it's not my cup of tea. It doesn't mean like it isn't others though, and that there is an element of the show that is going to be dedicated to this, and obviously there will be with the Uncle Howdy Bray stuff.
I wonder, like without the Mountain Dew stuff, like what are they going to do? You know, for his WrestleMania match, for instance, with this blacklight deal felt like it was a special occasion for tonight. So when it comes to WrestleMania or just even a match on SmackDown, for instance, will we have all these theatrics? You know, will it be the red lighting that we're used to with The Fiend, or will it just be a straight up match? At this point, I wonder if the audience just wants a straight up match. Let's go to Hansi. Hansi, you're on the show. What do you think of the Rumble?
I thought the men's Rumble was incredible, and I knew Gunther wasn't gonna win, obviously, but I think that's like the second best spot other than winning is having the Iron Man spot, because a lot of credible people have done well with the Iron Man spot, and I feel like Gunther has earned the right to get a big time match for Mania. As far as the women's Royal Rumble, I have sentiments that I wasn't really as into it, and that's more of a detriment on how they book other women on the roster that are not as over. And only at least like Rhea makes sense because she's the only one that seems to be unscathed from a lot of the booking that has been gone on, maybe because she's been with the Dominic and Judgment Day stuff. So I thought that was the right call. Now that the main event, which is why I called in, because I was not ready for it. I knew it was gonna happen, and oh my god, man, I was in tears almost. I was joyous because Sami turned on them before they turned on him, but the beatdown was incredible. The thing is, I remember when I called in after Survivor Series and said that, could you guys see a scenario where this is going to overtake the Cody thing because they promoted the Cody thing in the long haul, and now it's coming into fruition. And here's the thing, like, okay, if Sami gets into the main event, okay, that's cool. Like, if we have to if it's another Daniel Bryan situation, we force it, whatever. But I don't understand that people think that the storyline has to completely end at Mania, in the sense that people don't seem to think that the Jey Uso element has played a large part in it. So I know people are going to say, it's a letdown if it's Sami and KO versus the Usos. But if they put that in a high position and like they make that feel like a main event level, that to me could, like you guys said on the Raw recap, that like that could possibly main event night one. And what's it called? I think that would set a good precedent for your tag titles to have an important storyline attached to it. Me personally, I think symbolically, if they can keep Sami hot for another year, I know that's going to be tough, whatever what they do. I think symbolically, WrestleMania 40 would align better for me personally, because WrestleMania 10 was Brett, 20 was Benoit, 30 was Daniel Bryan. Sami is another one that matches that. Every 10 years, the underground worker that WWE didn't want to be the guy is the guy. But I don't think that the people think that the ending has to be like this year's WrestleMania with Sami and Reigns, whatever. Because I personally think that Jey Uso is going to be lingering for the next 3 weeks, and you're going to think that Jey Uso is going to be against Reigns. I think if they do Sami and Reigns, and Jey Uso shows up to help him, then I think that sets it up. And I just think the Jey Uso part of the story, which is what everyone's kind of other people are forgetting online, is that is much more as important as the Reigns element, in my personal opinion. And I'll leave you guys with that. Good recaps. Sorry I didn't call in yesterday. I was really tired, but I called in for this because this was like a really great moment. One of the best moments that this company has ever done, in my personal opinion. So thank you guys for your recaps, and I'll leave you guys alone. It's getting late. Peace out.
All right,
and thank you for the call, Hansi. Appreciate it. Any thoughts on any of what Hansi said, John?
No, I think if you play your cards right, I think the tag program is big enough that you could do that on the first night of WrestleMania. I think it's a hot program, and you go with what is the hottest program, is you position it as such. And I think that is very, very doable. It does a huge amount for your tag titles, and more importantly, it is the biggest program.
Here's another question that hasn't necessarily been asked yet, but they're doing Cody versus Roman at WrestleMania. Does Cody have to win?
he doesn't have to win. He
Yeah.
probably should win at this point, but he doesn't have to. I mean, it's his defining story. It's like chasing this title.
And do you want to end it already?
Well, the argument is, if not Cody, then who?
Sami Zayn. Not at WrestleMania, but later on.
I think you'd be doing WrestleMania a whole lot differently if that was in the cards for them. Like, I don't believe that they're looking at, like, the ultimate destination is Sami Zayn as our big conqueror of Roman Reigns.
Well, they certainly weren't. But, I mean, I don't know. Like, I would be questioning at least that possibility, especially after tonight. Let's keep going here with the calls. Let's go to Muggin up next. Muggin. So, Zelina Vega is the commentator for Street Fighter 6, the video game?
Yeah, yes. Zelina Vega is going to be doing a play-by-play commentary for.
So she's in the game.
Well, she's doing commentary like in real time. You know, like.
What does that mean? Like on a stream or something? Like what?
Oh no! Like during gameplay, like so, like you hop into versus mode. Like you can actually like switch the commentary, so that way she's like doing a play-by-play of gameplay.
Got it. Okay, so she's in the game. Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
By the way, before we continue, I don't mean to cut you off. I gotta say, her gear, her jury gear was so ill. Like it was amazing.
Cool.
And
cool.
Yeah. And by the way, about the rest of the show, I got a question. Dwayne who? I'm telling you, that ending was fucking tremendous. Okay, look, I had suspected that Sami Zayn was gonna get the boot, and just like the fact that he struck first, you have no idea how excited I was. Like I was like this, like when it happened. Unbelievable.
I love the fact that he was the one to make the first move, and it was not the Bloodline turning on him first. I mean, it makes him look like a hero. Absolutely.
Exactly, because if it was the other way around, it would be like if it was the other way around. Yeah, he would still be like people would still feel sympathetic for him, but he would just feel like a guy that just got turned on. The fact that Sami pulled the trigger, struck first, made all the difference. Mm-hmm. And of course, I gotta give credit to to Heyman. His facial acting was excellent.
Yeah.
Jey Uso is something else. He was special during that whole thing. The fact that he walked away leaves a lot of intrigue over what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. Now that I got that out of my system, now I can talk about the rest of the Rumbles. Okay, Gunther was MVP. He was MVP. Sure, it was like Cody winning was predictable, but predictable doesn't mean bad. I mean, it was already the plan anyway, so I'm happy with that. But Gunther, lasting all the way to the final two was just excellent. And I also loved and the fact that he put him with Cody, just he's coming off a texture surgery was genius because he loves doing those chops. I do have a few one gripe when it comes to both Rumbles. Like the Women's Rumble had a little more NXT talent appear, which was nice. But I mean, I would love to see Carmelo Hayes or even Braun Breaker in the Men's Rumble because. The lack of NXT talent in the Men's Rumble was pretty noticeable, and I feel like Zayn versus Reigns should be the direction for Montreal because I bet the Bell Center is going to be absolutely apeshit when Sami is in the match because that's just on atmosphere alone is going to be something. It's going to be something amazing, and I'm also glad that Rhea Ripley won the Women's Rumble, and I feel like she's at a bit of a crossroads right now because, it's heads or tails. She's got options. Either she faces Bianca Belair in Inglewood, or she rights the biggest wrong in her career by facing Charlotte at WrestleMania. Look, if the powers that be see fit to do Rhea versus Bianca instead, I would give Asuka the shot to face Charlotte at WrestleMania because. Man, I gotta say, Asuka stood up big time in the Women's Rumble. She completely revitalized herself with that new look, especially with that murder makeup. Amazing.
Thank you so much for the call, Muggin. Appreciate it as always.
Thank you.
Let's go up next to Alex. Alex, welcome to the show. What did you think of the Royal Rumble?
So I was, I'm actually in my rental car right now. I actually just got back from the Alamo Dome. I don't know if you can tell, but my voice is basically just shot at this point. That environment was incredible. And it's such a night and day from last year because I was at that Rumble and everyone felt left on such a low. This year, it was so much different. Everyone was excited. Sammy was the most over person in that entire building. The men's Rumble match, loved it from start to finish. It was so good. I'm so happy that Cody won. I know it's very predictable, but I was really happy with it regardless. But the Bray Wyatt stuff, I've had the misfortune of seeing literally name your pick of the worst Bray Wyatt matches, and I have been there live. Like I've seen the terror match with Randy Orton. I've seen the Hell in a Cell. I've been there live. So I had very low expectations, and it did not meet those low expectations. Bray Wyatt's just one of those characters that I just won't connect with, and I just every time I hear that he has a match, I just groan. But I mean, if it works,
How was the match from like the live perspective? Like, how difficult was it to see what was going on?
It was bad. I couldn't tell. I can tell what was going on. It just looked like neon blobs at times.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some Naomi chants
for the neon. Yes.
Yeah. The Alexa match, the crowd was basically dead until the KOD happened. And then the women's match, it, like you guys said, everyone popped for as soon as Damage Control came out and they were running and they're, taking everybody out, and then Becky came out. That's really when it picked up. Asuka coming out in that Kana gear was awesome. Muggin just pointed out something that I now want to see, which is I want to see Asuka versus Charlotte and get her win back from that streak. Like that I want to see that happen now. And the Hardy performance was so I just wasn't a fan of it. It was just as bad live as it was worse in person, I bet, than it was on Peacock. But as on the whole, that main event, like you guys said, it was incredible. Like it was just like as soon as the match was over and everyone was seeing that post-match angle, everyone just stood still on their feet watching what was happening. Like that stadium just paused and just watched what was going on in that ring. And those "fuck you Roman" chants were real. Like though everyone was so mad. So I'm very, very excited to see how this all ties into WrestleMania and at Elimination Chamber. I'm gonna be at WrestleMania, so I'm really looking forward to what they do there. So like I said, it was a fantastic show live. Thank you guys for what you guys do. Like you guys are awesome. But yeah.
Oh, thanks, Alex. You'll definitely enjoy rewatching the angle because not just visually was it really compelling, but the dialogue that was going on as well. Like for the viewer at home, there was even more. So when you rewatch it, I'm sure you'll have even more appreciation for it. I'm sure.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you so much, Alex. Appreciate it. Let's go up next to Kishan. Kishan, welcome to the show. What did you think of the Rumble?
Hey guys. I mean, the Rumble overall, I'll give it a thumbs up just for that main event and the storyline. Quickly, like the Rumble matches, I feel like the women's match suffered from the men's one because there was a lot of like mimic booking. Like with Walter going to the end made sense, but then you didn't need Rhea being number one as well. Damage Control being like Judgment Day, kind of taking everybody out, and then Becky playing the edge role, coming in and trying to clear them out. But I mean, the right person won. Rhea won, and I feel like in one night they rehabbed Asuka pretty well. So I agree with everyone else saying that if they did the redemption storyline with her and Charlotte, that would be an interesting one to do. But for the main event, like as soon as they started with the men's Rumble, I was right away that even heightened kind of what they're going to book the championship match, like how they were going to book that. And the layers to this story just keep going. Like now, like we've all been interested in Sami and we still are, but the layers to Jay now have just been like, I keep going back to when Jay was forced into the bloodline and he tells Roman, I hate you because of what Roman's making him do. And I feel like all that stuff, maybe post-Mania, maybe in the summer, is going to come back up. And even now when Jimmy came back initially, and Jimmy was the one saying like, we don't need to like follow Roman and everything like that. Now it seems like it's flipped, right? Jimmy's got like that Stockholm syndrome, and it's Jay the one who's kind of conflicted, and he doesn't know where it's going, right? So even with this title run, it looks like it's going to be them versus Sami and KO. Them losing makes sense because even if Jay decides to stay with them, his head's not in the game, right? And that can just lead to more and more things. So, I mean, this storyline keeps feeding us, you know, even when we think we're near the end of the meal, they keep adding layers to it, and it's great. Like it's been the best thing in wrestling in the last year. I can't remember a storyline like this that has, you know, been providing so much. I mean, the closest thing maybe it was the wait for Hangman to with the Elite. Like those two are the only ones because these seem like 2-year storylines, right? But this storyline could keep going, even with Cody winning, right? Down the road, you can do Sami fighting Roman without the title.
True.
And him triumphing over him in that way. And then later that can lead to Jay and all these other things, right? So, yeah. Thumbs up show just based on the main event, I think. So, yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks a lot for the call, Krishan. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thanks, guys, for staying up so late. I really appreciate it.
Thank you as well.
Thank all 600 of you that are watching us live right now on youtube.com/ProWrestling, staying up late with us. Let's go to our final call here from the Professor, Chris Ely from the Nubian Wrestling Advocates. Chris, how you doing?
Hey, I didn't even realize you guys were on. I just logged on. I was watching SNL. It was pretty funny, by the way, Mike and Jordan. But, yeah, I really enjoyed this Royal Rumble more than I have past Royal Rumbles. I just don't – I think there was only one way to move from last year's Royal Rumble, and that was up. And even the stuff that I didn't particularly like on this Royal Rumble, it didn't dominate the show. I did notice I took notes during this Royal Rumble, and I timed the time between entrance of the women versus the men, and I noticed with the women, they were coming out at the beginning like a minute apart.
Oh yeah, they were coming out pretty rapid, and I imagine the show had been running late at that point anyway.
Yeah, but then like towards the end, the longest one I timed was like 2 minutes and 46 seconds between entrance. So I guess because at the end it was like 62 minutes or something that I timed. So it was cool, and again, I just thought the Rumble itself was both Rumbles. I think it annoys me because the Royal Rumble is like a hard match to screw up, in my opinion. So when you screw it up, it just annoys me. But this year, I don't think they did anything like I don't think they changed the world with either Rumble, but I think they didn't mess it up, and I think that's enough for me. And then of course the closing match, I thought that was great, and all the different twists and turns they're going to make with it. It's just intriguing to me.
Yeah, I think they're going to come out of this show with a ton of interest on Monday for Raw, and I think WrestleMania season. I think you know that Montreal show I think is going to be very, very big, especially if you go to something as big as Reigns and Zayn. I think there's overall just a lot of interest in the product, and unlike many years during Rumble to WrestleMania season, a lot of it's with your roster that you have created these stories that you've built up. That this is a year that, quite honestly, if they don't have a Rock and they don't have an Austin, that is not the end of the world by any stretch. That they have enough here that can certainly sustain 2 nights of WrestleMania, and they're going to be very successful shows. And you know they have a lot of their ducks in a row right now.
Right, and you know, then even I was hoping there were people missing, like Solo Sikoa. I wanted to see him in the Rumble, but he wasn't in it. But I didn't mind it. You know, I wasn't I didn't feel cheated. And even having Booker T come back for it didn't ruin the match. You know, it was just it was just par of the course kind of stuff, and I was cool with it. And
You were hoping for a Shane McMahon. That was.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't want to see that again. I'm glad we didn't get that. I'm glad they just kept it simple. Cody Rhodes wins it. You know, I'm satisfied. You know,
It's a show that it's kind of, sometimes it's going to be a straightforward show, and this was a show that, you know, it was getting your people in place, and for some it was predictable, but sometimes this is like a predictable time of the year where everything is hopefully making sense and going in the direction that it's been building towards. So Cody and Rhea Ripley, probably a lot of people saw that, but it's in the execution, and I think they did execute well, where both are coming out with the right kind of momentum for the next few months.
Yeah, it's better than the surprise of Shane McMahon coming in and beating everybody up. So, I mean, what's there to complain about?
Well, there you go. Chris, thanks as always for popping in and working us in after SNL.
Oh, yeah, cool. Yeah, cool stuff. Check that out, man. It was really good.
Okay, I will.
All right.
Thank you, Professor. Much appreciated. We have a few pieces of feedback here from forum.postwrestling.com. Which is accessible, of course, to all of our Post Wrestling Cafe patrons. John, you want to start us off?
Yes, Luke from Quebec. I enjoyed the show. I thought both Rumble matches were quite good, very well structured, and better than those in recent years. I like how the eliminations were not as fast, making each person feel more important. Star-making performance from Gunther, in case anyone wasn't already convinced the guy is awesome. Women's match was also very good, even though few of the women are over with the crowd. Was a lot smoother than previous ones that were often pretty sloppy. Having Rhea win from number one was great and well-deserved, and she's been killing it both inside and outside the ring. The final angle was an absolute masterpiece of storytelling, one of the best angles this company has ever done.
Brandon from Oshawa. We can praise the Bloodline story to the moon, but realistically, why in the hell would Kevin Owens ever team with Sami Zayn after the amount of things the Bloodline has done to him? And why should we give a shit about this story when it's going to just end with them winning the tag team titles, which we have been trained to not care about? There's no room for Cody Rhodes to be involved here. It is a massive disconnect after his numerous months story.
I think the tag titles mean a ton right now, given how long the run has been and who's going to end the Usos. And the whole point of this is that Sami Zayn, it has always been like he has never, he has aligned himself with the Bloodline, but it's never been a vendetta with Kevin Owens. Like, these two are, at the end of the day, they still have this kinship with one another, and that has been, Sami Zayn has always had that hesitancy when it comes to Kevin Owens, but he has had to do this with the haluva kick at War Games, and culminating with what you did tonight. Like, this is, two people that have known each other for 20 years, and this is like the story of a friendship that at their heart these two care for one another. I don't think it's hard to understand why there would be, and that should be like this culminating moment when they finally reunite with one another, that it will be this big moment, because you wonder about that, if that rift exists, or they can come back together and align.
Yeah, and I think even beyond just like the friendship, it's about Sami Zayn making up for the treatment that he's been receiving, from Roman Reigns, and this guy doing everything he can to try to get accepted by this group, and ultimately choosing that he doesn't really need them. It's a story of personal growth for Sami Zayn that I think makes this so attractive. The titles, I would argue too, would be like, I mean, this Usos reign is the longest, like, legitimately in their history.
Let's also remember, like, they have never shied away from the whole history in WWE between Zayn and Owens. What does Kevin Owens do the first night in NXT after Sami has won the title? He power bombs him on the apron. It's like Kevin Owens has turned on this guy in the past as well, and they have still had this relationship that has existed. So it's not like this one-sided thing either. Like, Owens has betrayed this guy in the past as well. Let's keep going here. Is it me or you?
You.
Ross writes, the closing angle is one of the hottest WWE has produced in years, and the storyline has been near perfection. Rebook however you have to, but the main event of WrestleMania Night 2 absolutely has to be Sami Zayn versus Roman Reigns after tonight. Cody going for the title is a nice story, but Sami and the Bloodline is a legendary one. Imagine the reaction if the angle had opened the show and Sami won the Rumble from the number 30 spot to end the night. Do you feel if they can explain them teaming together in storyline that Sami, Owens, and Jay versus Roman, Jimmy, and Solo is a big enough match for Montreal if he is not going for the title, or is it too soon for Jay to fight against the Bloodline? I don't like that direction so quickly. The idea, first of all, of like brother versus brother, of like Jay versus Jimmy, I think it would be way too early to. I do think it's way too early to have Jay opposing the Bloodline because
and they're still champions.
They're still the champions, and I think that this is this moment of this crossroads for Jay that I think you have teased the idea of him leaving the Bloodline, but he is ultimately going to be loyal to his family, but down the road will always remember this crack in this relationship that is not fully addressed, but this family is all he knows, and he is going to go back to what he knows.
Yeah, I'm looking for something in all of this that'll take them to the next year's WrestleMania. You know, this is the hottest story they've had in a long, long time, and I don't see them just kind of cutting it off. I see them somehow branching this off into something that carries them, you know, for the next several months. So, one of those, you know, major elements is to have potentially the Usos oppose one another, or even simply Jey Uso opposing Roman Reigns again. So we'll see how they play it. Let's go up next to Nas from New York City, who says the ending was the single greatest emotionally charged segment of pro wrestling I've ever witnessed. That was so good. All 6 individuals involved played their part so well. Went above and beyond even my highest of expectations. Just absolutely unreal storytelling. I cannot wait to see what is next. Hats out to everyone involved.
Saeed from Vancouver, I felt the men's rumble, I felt after the men's rumble, the show took a nosedive before the women's picked it up again. The main event was amazing and the storytelling incredible. They had since Extreme Rules to book the Knight and Bray match, and that is what they came up with. I don't even know what to say anymore about Bray.
It's true. You know, this story has taken way too long to get to, and and this was not an ideal scenario. Like, this was a corporate sponsorship match that you were attached to. Very hard to, you know, the Bray Wyatt character to get around this. They did it as best they could, but it wasn't the greatest circumstance, which I'm sure was, you know, assigned to them. I don't think this was something that is, it was a difficult spot for both to be in. We go to Tommy from Scotland up next. My prevailing thought on tonight's event is the distinct lack of representation and significant moments for black wrestlers in the Rumble matches, particularly the women's one. It's shameful but not surprising given Paul's history on and off screen. I don't know if I agree with that last part. I mean, he's referring to the Booker T angle, but I mean, we've had Bianca Belair headline WrestleManias. We've had Sasha Banks headline WrestleManias. In this particular Rumble, yeah, maybe you can point to it. Trying to think, like, that's maybe more of a problem internally, right? Like, we have no one really. Michin, if you want to count.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, it's more of a problem from their like, you know, NXT program up. So yeah, no, I don't really know what to say about it. I don't have that much insight about that particular aspect, but please comment on the video or to us if you feel the way Tommy from Scotland feels.
Robbie from London writes, first WWE show I've watched since SummerSlam, and I have to say I enjoyed it a lot. Both Rumble matches were huge improvements from last year. And that main event may have been the drinks I had, but the main event was just the right amount of drama for me. The acting from Sami looked conflicted with tears, Jay being distraught, and the boss energy from Reigns really had me. And he says, well, we've kind of talked about discussions for what goes after this. He gives it an 8 out of 10.
Benjamin says, best Rumble. What a show. The bloodline and the unpredictable machinations mean nothing when a story is told this well. And Rhea Ripley is a perfect choice for winning the Rumble. The roads to WrestleMania is risked being overshadowed by the Bloodline versus Zayn story. Jey Uso's walkout was an additional heartbreak that lays out an even more compelling story going forward. Yeah, it's so interesting how like a lot of the discussion going into the Rumble was whether or not Sami Zayn's presence would have taken away from Cody Rhodes' participation in the Rumble and the Rumble match itself. That Rumble match I thought went off without a hitch, but coming off this show, people are still asking that question.
Well, that's the bigger discussion, is that yes, in the inside of the stadium, it was not a case of overshadowing Cody, but following it, I think that angle completely overshadows Cody. And that is not to say Cody is the wrong choice. I think Cody is a very compelling challenger for Roman Reigns going into WrestleMania. I don't think this is the case where it's it's just, this to me is the year that I think it's just Sami Zayn and like this whole angle is the hottest thing you have. And it's not to say that makes the alternative cold. Cody is not cold at all. And he may end up being perfectly sufficient that you can get both of these, that Sami gets Montreal and Cody gets WrestleMania, and you revisit. But I would assume like this has been probably their idea for months involving Cody. And I think from that injury onward, like this made all the sense in the world when he got hurt, and the timing lined up for January for him to come back. And I'm sure like that is, but you never know what's going to catch fire. In June, Sami was not part of the Bloodline at all. So that's the unique part of wrestling, is that, things can take off and then you have to pivot or not, stick to a plan. Let's go next to, we'll go to Connor here from London. The Academy may have to put Rumble 23 in the Best Picture category after that closing segment. What an amazing storyline they have crafted. Both Rumble matches had great finishes, but as most Rumbles are, the rest of the match is pretty boring. They should look to 2001 on how to make an entire match interesting. How do you see the Bloodline story ending and the matches that come out of tonight? We've kind of gone over that, at least for...
How it ends, I can't tell you, dude. I can't even tell you what happens next week. I'm just here to enjoy the ride and to talk about, what we just watched, because they have a lot of great possibilities coming up. Let's go up next to Kate from Montreal, who says, the final post-match angle feels like the only thing that people are going to remember about the show, and it was a great payoff to the segment of the Bloodline Sami Zayn story. I really like the added twist of having Jay, Roman's first title challenger, questioning himself. It adds a new and unexpected element. I didn't love the strategy of having the first entrant go the entire Rumble in both matches, but I did feel like Gunther and Rhea looked very strong coming out, so I guess that means it worked. Although she didn't win, I also thought Asuka felt like a big deal for the first time in a long time, and I hope that they'll have her go after Charlotte to get her win back at Mania. I liked most of the men's Rumble, but the rest of the show was pretty tiresome, including the Roman-Kevin match, which was the weakest of the ones they've had. The angle at the end certainly avoids the usual problem of feeling like things are in a holding pattern until Mania, at least for Roman, since he has this big problem in the interim with Sami built in, but Cody feels like an afterthought coming out of tonight. The crowd even seemed to lean towards Rollins over him when they were in the match together. If you're WWE, do you rush the Roman-Sami story to get it out of the way before the home stretch to Mania?
Yeah, as I said, I would do Roman and Sami in Montreal, and I don't think it's a case of you are wrapping up the story. I think you're just going in the direction of Sami and Owens together, that I think people will take as a advancement of the story, and not these two are being sidelined or given lesser roles going into WrestleMania. That it keeps us with our plan of Roman and Cody while also giving Sami and Kevin with the Usos, like, that is the perception of an A storyline that I believe is big enough that it could be a main event for one of those nights.
Agreed.
Last one here is Jermaine from Chicago. All right. He calls Nia Jax an unsafe worker. What's going to change in the second run? I love how the SmackDown champion Gunther is being treated. He should be the champion of SmackDown and Cody the champion of Raw. Bray Wyatt had 3 to 4 months to get in ring shape and didn't, or time off to work on his in-ring, and he didn't. The guy did a 5-minute match, which was a glow-in-the-dark match.
Theatrics heavy, yeah.
Hunter can do a lot better with the women because most of the Rumble was dead. Lastly, Roman doesn't need the title. Too often his matches become vehicles for angles like the one tonight. It's a fun gimmick that Jermaine runs. He is consistent throughout all these years, but we appreciate it at 2:30 in the morning. All right.
Hey, everybody that's in here right now, all 600 of you, hit subscribe on our YouTube channel. We are trying to get to 13,000 subscribers. Help us break through a bit of a plateau that we've experienced. If you enjoy the content that we do, John and I, put a lot of hard work into it, and all we ask is hitting that subscribe, hitting that like, get us recognized by the algorithm as we are go on our path to 1 million subscribers. John.
Oh, okay, that's the path we're on. I wasn't aware. Okay, well, make it happen. We are going to be back on Monday with Rewind to Raw right here on Post Wrestling and youtube.com/Post Wrestling. So you can check that out on Monday. And of course, postwrestlingcafe.com is where we do multiple bonus shows per week. Ask Away, the mailbag edition, will be coming out on Tuesday with Wai and I going through all of your mailbag questions from the forum from the past couple of months, because we did miss January, but we are coming back. Large mailbag to get to all of your questions. All subjects are welcome. So tune into that on Tuesday as well. Later on this week, Brandon Thurston and I are going to be joining up for a pair of shows this week. We are going to be doing an interview together with a special guest. That's going to be dropping on Tuesday. So check out the schedule on Monday to find out the contents of that. And then Friday, Brandon and I will go through the WWE year-end and fourth quarter financial results and earnings call that is happening on Thursday evening. So you can look out for plenty of myself and Brandon Thurston this week. And of course, Brandon and company will be back Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern with WrestleNomics Radio, which will be popping up on the Post Wrestling feed. So to everyone that joined us live, thank you very much for joining us on this Royal Rumble Saturday. Wai, thank you as always, and I need to go to sleep. So good night, everyone. Thanks for listening.